New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Joy Show, where being you is celebrated. Joy is an acronym for just one you. So get ready for a great hour of inspiration. But let's begin with the land acknowledgement. In the spirit of reconciliation and peace, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet on these lands, these sacred spaces. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. And we recognize our oneness, we realize our history, and we choose to create a new reality, for we are one. Miigwech. Well, my guest today is the remarkable Reverend Dr. Martha Creek, and she is amazing. She serves those who serve. Yes. She looks after all of us who are looking after all of you. How great is that? Widely known in New Thought, Martha's trainings approach deep inner work as an adventure with a sense of curiosity and wonder. A master of the art of right questioning, she calls forth the most stubborn and self-defeating patterns, yes, she does, to create a new way of being, literally. So ordained in religious science, divine science, Martha has served in many capacities, and we're just going to stop there and let you meet this glorious woman. Welcome, Martha. So glad you're here.
How do you do, everybody? Thank you for that, Barbara Jean. It's a privilege for me to be here. As you said, it's a fulfillment. So these seeds are sown today out of the goodness of our heart and our own call to ministry to serve those who serve. So anybody listening to this now or later is also servant-hearted, or they wouldn't have been live with us. So I bless it and uplift it, that it is renewing, and that it is revitalizing, restorative, and absolutely purposeful and meaningful to every heart and soul, mind that it touches.
Yeah, it's the work you're doing is remarkable, because for those of us who are in ministry or in this serving type work that we do, it can be hard to find someone who can support us in times of need, because we too are human and have needs as well. What got you to do that? Like, how did you get here?
Well, I was called as a young child, at 3 years old. It was the first time I declared at age 3 that I'm a minister. And it was very funny. It was seen in my family as a joke. They actually laughed, like I would made a little funny, because there's no such thing as a female minister. Right. No way, no how is there anything like a female minister. So in fairness to them, it would have sounded like a joke or funny, although I knew that it was my purpose, that it's a calling that I had even at an early age. Yeah. And I decided that I would do it formally at age 40. So all through my career, I had a great deal of success in corporations and serving teams and building teams and having a go time, that whenever I turned 40, I would resign it all and move into ministry formally, professionally, and do it for the rest of my days, ever how many days, years it was. So I plotted a path to look at academies and universities and various seminary programs, and what aligned with me and ended up studying in this to serve in an arena that will serve those who are serving, minister to ministers. That includes also teachers, preachers, social workers, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, the whole of humanity. So it's not just a service organization or service as a profession, but service as a verb, minister as a verb, not a noun. So I started then training at age 38, so that by the time I was 40, I would have some seminary and underpinning of training preparation for this. And it was clear as a bell as I got to looking at what was happening out in the world, particularly in the world ministry, that I could not find a minister that was actually prepared for what they were stepping into.
Whew,
Like no
yes.
amount of seminary, no amount of theology, no amount of skills training, pastoral cares had prepared us for the whole spectrum of humanity and what
Yeah.
would be required to serve in ministry. So it was clear that calling from that many years ago was accurate, and that I would spend my days doing it. So 25
Wow. Wow.
now, yeah, 20 going into my 25th.
25 years. Wow. I've been in ministry 24 years. So we're kind of close on that. It's interesting because when you say we're not prepared for it, no kidding. Um, I think that's one of the big challenges, probably in many professions. If you don't do an internship, you haven't got a clue what's going on. And being a minister is interesting because it's not a job, it's a life. It doesn't have regular hours. It doesn't have it's not always fun. Sometimes
Oh,
it's
that,
really
I mean, absolutely. And even if you've done an internship, to stay open to that was one speck of time. That
yes.
was one string in a tapestry
Yeah.
here. So just because I interned through that string doesn't mean that there's not 20 more strings that will shock me when they show up on my plate either. And the absolute possibility of it, and including how to keep ourselves together. And most of us that are in a quote helping profession got not just a strand of helping DNA, but the whole helix is multiple strands of helper wanting to help and be of some help, some earthly good, and the frustrations of pouring yourself out to help, and how hard it is to see, and how long it takes to see seeds
Mhm.
that you plant and nurture actually grow, and to accept the timing of it. And some of my favorite things, honey, my favorite things that I'm quoted on includes, you cannot make a bean plant grow by pulling on it. People take nothing away from our little chat here today, but that will serve them the rest of their days. And for me to hear it again, right into my own consciousness, right into my own bones and blood.
Yeah.
And the will of the way of it is the will and the way of it. And I cannot make a bean plant grow by pulling on it. And while we're
That's so
at it, my second favorite one is, when you notice the horse is dead, dismount. And
yeah,
that,
we don't do that. We stay on for a long time after.
girl, yeah. And
Oh
how many
my
dead
goodness.
horses I have beat and begged and prayed over. And one more time, I promise, just one more time, get up, you can do it. Encourage, wail, pray, beg, plead, put a bubble around it, paint a rainbow on its side, and
Oh my goodness.
eventually to awaken to this horse is actually a dead one.
I think that's a really big problem in our society overall, is that fear of stepping into the unknown, leaving something familiar. I don't call it comfortable, I call it familiar. Leaving the familiar for something unfamiliar. That seems to be a really huge challenge for people. stepping out in that way.
Absolutely it is. And even though it's not comfortable, there is some comfort, strange, even masochistic comfort in
Yeah.
that which is familiar. And you
Mhm.
can look at it psychologically, spiritually, physically, how somebody that's in a very intense situation, even an abusive situation, has
Mhm.
to stay in that over and over and over, because as painful as it is, as suffering as ridden it is, it's not as torturous thinking as what the next might be or what the unfamiliar would bring. And,
Yeah.
you've heard about it with them having to pry children out of the hands of the people that had harmed them, neglected them, burned them, beat them, and
Yeah.
symbiotic wiring in there, that biological wiring is real.
Yeah, it is. And, it's fascinating. I've done some work with battered women. I was one at one time. And the reason that it's comfortable for me to work with that is that I know why they go back. And so I'm not the one who's gonna, the minute they go back, abandon them, because I know I'm gonna hear from them again. But a lot of people will sit back and go, well, if she's going to go back, then the hell with it. I'm out of here. And the reason she goes back is because she thinks she could do it better and make it right. And
Absolutely.
that's an illusion that many of us live with.
And we're all in that illusion, whether it's in battery or not. We're all in that illusion to some degree. That there's still, if each of us look today to see where I'm still hanging in there like a hair in a biscuit, because I believe I can change it, change them, have some influence, awaken them, change myself, that there's something I can do here that's going to make this reality different. And it's a slippery slope, because many of us would have stories about somebody that actually had a transformation. Somebody that said, that was the last day I ever took a drink, or that was the last day that I ever was hit, or that was the last day I ever hit, whatever. So those stories can call to hang in there longer, instead of saying, that's its own psychology around that too, to know when I have the tendency to stay too long.
Yeah.
When the writing's on the wall, and that for whatever reason I can't say I've had just enough of this. And there may be a transformation, and it doesn't have to be, I may not be here to witness the transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've had a number of people that have left for whatever reason, but a few that have come back later. People who were mad at me because they thought I'd done something. And then they come back later and go, oh, that actually wasn't about you. that was about me. I had some stuff going on. I think there's a lot of work to be done. And I think as ministers, it's important that we maintain a level of patience and objectivity around where people are at and not expecting them to be perfect, or because I have some congregants who go, well, there's people here that aren't doing the teaching. Well, of course there are. Lots of them. Lots of them are here. And it's like, of course. But I think people forget that this is a journey, and we're all in a little different place, and we all need slightly different things, and we're learning and growing. That can be a bit frustrating, trying to explain that to somebody sometimes. Let the other people be where they are.
Well, absolutely. And for me, I had to wake myself up to, if I'm over there telling them how they're not in alignment with the teachings, I'm not in alignment with the teachings. I'm
Exactly.
preaching to myself that says, I don't know a thing about their integrity. And that was part of my awakening, that people would say, Barbara Jean's out of integrity. Barbara Jean's out of integrity. And I'm like,
Yeah,
you don't know a thing about Barbara Jean's integrity. Barbara Jean's integrity belongs to her. So
exactly.
the only integrity I have to meet today, the only integrity I've got to take accounting for today is my own.
Is
And
my
it's
own.
not in my integrity to be pointing out somebody else's integrity.
that
Or
that generally, there's more fingers pointing back in those moments. Yeah,
yes, including there's the teachings, they're not following the teaching. It's like it's so arbitrary. Like what teaching, and it's like whatever is the teaching is only for me to apply. Like
exactly.
I don't get to run around and tell other people um believe this or believe that or don't believe this or I can't do that and be at any kind of level of peace.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always loved about the New Thought teaching is that it really is about personal responsibility. Each one of us responsible for our own lives, and we can only work within ourselves. I think that's hard for some people to understand, that they cannot affect somebody else's life. They don't have, well, I mean, they can affect it, but they can't make people change. They can't make people think their way. It's like you have to deal with your own stuff and deal with your own life, whatever it
And
looks like.
that's, some of us tease like, well, like what has happened? Like, what would explain the demise in this? What would explain these ever decreasing numbers in places where you do get connections, social care, spiritual care, spiritual growth, and others. Some of my colleagues will speculate. Well, it's very popular because you keep telling people they're responsible for themselves. Like
Yeah.
who wants to be responsible for themselves? Like that's not all that popular. Like, no, I'm here so I won't have to take any more responsibility than I already have. I'm here to make sure somebody else takes responsibility for me. And when I hear, no, that's not aligned here. You actually hold some responsibility for your own well-being, your own care, your own mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual
Yeah.
condition. Then it's like, no, thank you. I'm out of here. Like I'm headed down the road where somebody else will give me the formula.
Somebody else saying, no, they're to blame. Well, it's fascinating because, and I chuckle because, there's so many people who have left my center when I've suggested to them, you are responsible for your life and everything in it. Absolutely everything. And people get really upset when they hear that sometimes, especially if there's something going on in their life that they don't like at the moment. Maybe they've got an illness or lack of funds or lost their job or whatever relationship challenge. And the minute you sit back and say that, there's this wall that goes up like, well, I didn't create this. Well, then who did? And it's not about blame, because that gets confusing. People think, oh, I'm to blame because I have cancer. No, you're not. But you're part of the whole, right? You're part of this consciousness where people believe in and focus on cancer, focus on it. Like it's in the consciousness of where we live. And then we end up, if we haven't sort of held ourselves out of that, we can get sick, or we can get whatever. And everything that happens in the body is just an opportunity for us to discover more about ourselves. It's not a
Well,
punishment.
yes, and to accept the parts that we cannot change. That says that I'm not responsible. I didn't cause a cancer in me, and
Right.
cancer is now in me. Cancer is a part of my experience. Cancer is a part of the lay of the land here. How
Yeah,
am I going to relate to this? What
exactly.
meaning am I going to give it? What persona am I going to take on about this?
Mhm.
And that I do have part of. I am
Yes.
absolutely part of that. And I've used over the years hopefully a easier metaphor about, if I go out to get in my car and the tire's flat, it wouldn't enter my mind that I caused that flat tire, but that
Exactly.
I'm just a thought away from that. Like, oh, I did cause it. I didn't check it. I've not had the check. How many miles does it have on it? I should have bought a better brand. I mean, I could go right off into self-hate and recrimination, even in a situation like that. Just
Absolutely.
looking on the thing, and the thing itself is a flat tire. And then if I put a period in there, the tire is flat, period, then
Yeah,
there's no angst in it. And then
exactly.
it's like a sane, sensible mind would say, what would be a solution for a flat tire? to call AAA, to call the neighbor, to see what's going to get it changed here. And then I'm off. I go with an inflated tire. And not to mention the absolute miracle that I'm 60 some years old and I've been driving since I was 12. And how many of all of that amount of life, how many flat tires has there been in that life experience? And we're still in reaction to that flat tire, like, OMG, can you believe it? A flat tire. Oh my God, what an inconvenience after all I've done for God. Look what I've dealt with today. Instead of like, it's a miracle that I've made it that far without more tires, with the condition of the roads and potholes and below freezing and ice and snow and 150 degrees and whatever else. It's a miracle tire has air in it. And it can stay on a rim doing 90 miles an hour down a freeway over and over and over. So the awe of that. And then if we're not careful, we'll talk about that the rest of the day. Martha, how'd your day go? It's like,
that flat tire.
Went out to a flat tire. It was awful. I had to change my appointments. I had to notify people. I didn't get to go. I hadn't eaten. And it's like, then the phone rings tonight. Hey, how'd your day go? Oh my God, it was awful. Then tomorrow, how was your weekend? Oh my God, it was awful. So it's like this tendency to awfulize and awfulize and awfulize. So to interrupt that at all, to say, I did have a flat tire, period. And I met flat tire with some understanding. I met myself with some compassion. This is hard. This is not pleasant. This is not convenient. I meet myself with some compassion and understanding. And I dealt with the flat tire and went on about my day.
And move on with it. Yeah, I think that's the big one. One of the things that I've been teaching with a little graph is to have, the event in the middle, and the event is always neutral. Always neutral. It can't be anything else. And so I sit back and I look at that and I go, well, if the event is neutral, then let me deal with it from that perspective. And that makes it easier, because the minute I judge it as good or bad, all the emotions flood in that are going to match that thought. And, sometimes we think the feeling comes first, but it doesn't. There's always a thought that precedes it. And
and even if the feeling is first, or we're not aware of the thought, all the hell is after the comma. So it's a flat tire, period. There's no hell there.
There's no hell there. There's a period. Yeah.
Comma. And it shouldn't have happened. This is awful.
Yeah.
Life is unfair. All the hell is after that comma. So power to the period.
Power to the period. And I remember the other one that we see in the news lately a lot is what if. Something happens, but then they go into, well, this happened, but what if it had gone to here, and what if that, and what if didn't happen? Why are we spending all this time on what if? And that's what really creates the suffering in us, is as we focus our attention on things that haven't even happened, probably will never happen. And we're spending all of this mental energy.
It's also, though, an addiction.
Yes.
Like, we're getting chemicals off that. The same chemicals are coursing through our body out of that what if and awfulizing, and that we get off of certain drugs and things. So it's an addictive quality to spin in that, to speculate, hypothesize, theorize, and that what if is a part of it. And we're wired to some degree as a dreamer aspect of us, to dream into what if I imagine something, and then that's a use of imagination that is awfulizing something that didn't actually happen. And then our bodies doesn't know that it didn't actually happen. So our bodies are in a physiological response to that imaging, that imagination, and that gerbil wheel that I'm on of awfulizing and what if, and the body's in a response to that. So we're under the stressful effects of that did not actually happen.
I think that's part of what I see with the news cycles as well. You know, you have your 24-hour news cycle, but there's only so many stories. And so they repeat them and repeat them and repeat them, sometimes many times in an hour. If it's a really big story, then it's constant. And I think that then plays in our mind where it's not one event. It's almost like our mind interprets it as, oh my goodness, the whole world is, you know, completely destroyed. And we've got this whole mantra going that makes us feel pretty bad. But I avoid the news for that reason. It can be too much.
Absolutely. And that's a reason to, or to have some limit on it that
Yes.
keeps some mindfulness around this is what I watched prior. So
Yes.
I've been updated now. I have the news. I've been informed. Whatever I came here for, I have. And I
Yeah.
can't, I'm susceptible to my body reacting to this as I watch these images over and over again, as though it's happening again. And there was
Yeah.
tremendous amount written about this during 9/11 and the
Yes.
cautions around watching those replays over those planes flying into those buildings and those collapses of that each and every time it was being watched, the body was into its own expressions of stress hormones, cortisol, and that as though it was happening again and again and again.
Yeah. And as if it's happening to us. Like we'll take it right in and start worrying about our own families or our own cities. I remember at 9/11 turning the TV on in the morning, and you know, we shut down our Wall Street here. It's Bay Street here, but it was all shut down and everybody out of there for fear that we'd be next,
Yes.
being the financial center for Canada. And you know, that fear and I mean, they played those images a lot that first week. It was constant. And I think there's something about sort of, like you say, limiting our exposure that's really helpful. I get the news. I usually get it from my husband or somebody, or, you know, you turn the TV on and there it is, and you catch one or two clips. But as a habit, I know people who sit and have their dinner in front of the TV watching the news. And I think, wow, how does that work for your digestion? Unless you're watching here Friday night and you're getting the good news. That's a whole different thing. Because we do that on Friday nights. But I think that's, you know, something for people to think about as well, as we look at nurturing ourselves and caring for ourselves and receiving help when we need it. I think there's a big journey there to changing the way we do certain things.
I think so too. And we're called, I believe, in the time, as you know, we're entering into our own immersive process with
Yeah.
extending not only compassion to others, but compassion for ourselves that would make a more discerned choice about what my limits are and telling the truth about that. And that is my responsibility to say, even if somebody else wants to do that and that's their way to spend their dinner hour, God bless you, go for it. And I cannot do it because it sucks the very life out of me. I come away not strengthened by it. I come
Yeah.
away weakened in some way by it. And I'm responsible for that condition on me. I'm responsible for what has that much effect on me. And then
Yeah.
to make remedy, make it right as I'm able to.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a commercial break, and I just want to say hi to Cheryl. I see Cheryl's in the room here, and we'll take a quick commercial break. You're watching The Joy Show here on the New Thought Media Network, and we'll be back right after this. Don't go away. Well, welcome back, everyone. And my guest today, the Reverend Dr. Martha Creek. And we are delighted to have her here. She is the person who serves those who serve. And what an honor to have you on the show today. So tell me some of the things you're finding as you're working with ministers and groups. I know you've got a program starting up next month, that your immersion program. What is it that you are finding with ministers these days? Is there sort of some things that are high on the list of challenges, or how are we doing?
Well, I think I don't know how I'd sum it up, but certainly that there is I mean, during COVID, I referred to it as the retirement of the week. So
Yeah.
ministers were retiring and dropping off at rapid pace, more than what we've seen over time in 50
Yeah.
years. And so to be in care of our own stamina, to
Mhm.
be in care of our own sustainability, and how to continue to serve and sustain ourselves in it, so that we are doing so with um, I'm hesitant to use the word passion, because somebody told me yesterday the root word of passion means suffering, and that we have a passion for ministry. And there's also suffering that goes with any passion, like the passion of the Christ or whatever.
Yeah.
There's something to bear with our profession. There's certainly passions for parenting, and there's also suffering that comes with parenting, which I don't need to go into with parents. Anybody that's a parent knows that.
That's
And
true.
that part of the noticing is then it's absolutely critical now to have compassion and self-compassion, which is sharing the suffering, sharing the challenges. And like you know quite well, that we're not meant to bear the burdening of our professions, of our lives, of our health, of our lack of health, of our finances, our emotions, or whatever else. We do not have to do that alone. And it's
No.
taking ministers some while to say, when I ask them what took you so long to reach out, it's like, well, I'm embarrassed. I was humiliated. I thought I
Yeah.
was supposed to do this. I didn't want to admit that I couldn't. I didn't want to admit the problems. I felt embarrassed that after all this training and all these certifications and degrees and all that, that I really wasn't equipped for some of this. So
Yeah.
there's all sorts of things that go on, not to mention what I observed the most, which was true for what was true in me, is these aspects of myself that I have depressed, suppressed, denied, and and
Yep.
and that they and did everything in the world to try to control them, manipulate them, talk them out of them, get them positive, turn them around, transcend them, transform them, meditate them. And
Yeah.
it's clear that those practices, mindfulness is a light years ahead of most of the other things. But even in a mindfulness, observing these parts of ourselves, the human aspects of ourselves, we're not going to transcend them over time until they are met with, sat with, listened to, amended, and actually healed.
Yeah.
So then it's like, oh, I was sure that seminary degree was going to be all of my healing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no. And as long as we've got a pulse, we've got some work to do. So
Yeah.
and I encourage then me and everybody else, I'm a student for life. I keep myself enrolled very specifically in deep inner work and deep inner processes, emotional, physical, psychic, spiritual processes.
Yeah.
And that's my own responsibility for myself and my own integrity to do so.
And it's so
Amen.
important, because as you do that, you're then fueled and you have the strength to deal with the people who come to you for support. And I think that's what we forget sometimes. I remember when I was just starting ministerial training, one of the ministers from Atlanta came up and was speaking to us. And he stood up, and the first thing he said, if there's anything else that you could do, and I do mean anything, flip burgers at McDonald's. If there's anything else, do that, because this is big. And I chuckled when he said it because I thought, oh, come on. But having served in 5 churches now, founding 2 of them, it's like, yeah, I get it. I get it. It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. You sit back, some days everybody loves you, and the next day everybody's angry with you. So you got to kind of, uh, keep a bit of strength within yourself, or you're going to fall. And that's just part of it.
Well, and that's where I'm observing, honey. That it's
Mhm.
like, then, okay, how can I continue to develop presence within myself so that I can hold presence with other people, regardless of what kind of shape they're in, regardless of what kind of
Yeah.
mood they're in, regardless of what they're holding against me? How can I develop an ever meaning, founded, grounded, solid foundation of presence that's beyond the theory of presence? That's actual embodiment of presence,
Presence.
not a
Yeah, that's
theory
the
of
key.
presence. While my guts are twisted, my throat's tight, and I'm just a hair away from kicking them in the shin, acting like all is well. It's like, well, there's all is not well in my being. It's a theory of all is well. I'm not
Yeah.
caught up to my theory yet, which is like,
Yeah.
people say it's all good, it's all good, it's all good. It's like, well, tell your face, because
Tell your face it's all
has
good.
not caught up to how good it all is yet.
Exactly. Well, that's the challenge. People learn a little bit about, the law of attraction, and think they can say an affirmation and buckets of cash will drop in their lap. And there's, that's not it. That's not it at all. We have to tap into that emotional aspect of ourselves and see where we're stopping ourselves from receiving good. Affirmations are great, but they're not going to solve anything if we don't take it into this heart space and actually figure out what we truly need so that we
Well,
can make
yes.
things
And then
happen.
believing that I could affirm a bucket of cash is going to drop off to me today, and it may actually happen. And
Yes,
then thought
exactly.
under
Yeah,
some kind of spell that was me that did that.
yeah.
Because, oh, by the way, I'll be doing the same affirmation tomorrow, and the bucket of cash didn't come tomorrow.
Hmm.
Then it's like, okay, if I'm going to take the glory of it, am I going to take the heat of it when it
Exactly.
doesn't happen? Versus life's going to be what life is, and my relationship with it is how is where my power is. And
Yeah.
which doesn't mean I wouldn't affirm and vision and
Oh, of
pray and
course.
hope and take action and surrender to, it may or may not unfold the way I had in mind for it to unfold.
It never seems to unfold quite the way we picture it. I remember before I met Pierre, and I'm dreaming about, having someone in my life, and, I'm imagining this very tall, 6'5" guy, dark hair, blue eyes, be fabulous. My husband's 5'6". God has dyslexia.
Well, it's like, it's, or the wisdom to know what I actually needed and what I actually wanted was
Yes,
not what I thought I needed or thought I
exactly.
wanted.
Yeah.
And Byron Katie used to say it as, no, it turned out like I had in mind. It was perfect instead.
I love that. I love that because really that's the truth. When it's right. And there's a sense we know, even though it doesn't match the picture that we initially had. I remember doing a vision board years ago and putting a hybrid car on it. This is when they were just beginning, and the only one I could come across, the only picture was of a Toyota, or no, it was a Honda Accord, or a Honda Civic, and I'm like, no, it's not quite it. It was silver, and I didn't want a silver car, but I put it on my vision board, and then just put this or something better. And a couple months later, I go to buy a car, and I end up with a Toyota Camry in this kind of apple green color, which was very unusual. And it was the first time Toyota had produced a hybrid. And so that I got that car, and I thought, this or something better. And I was out test driving minivans and drove onto the lot, saw that car and said, work out the numbers on that. Like
Oh,
it's, we don't know what we want sometimes until we actually see it or until we've done a little bit more work and what shows up. If we can accept what is, my favorite line is, it is what it is. And if we could just accept that and know that it's taking me somewhere, I'm learning from it, I'm growing from it. Even when I fell and broke my shoulder, it's like, it is what it is. I don't know
well,
what it's teaching me, but I do
that's
now.
right. That's right. As long as you're not being mean to yourself over that. I
Exactly.
just did a talk that's recorded now that will air tomorrow with a ministry up in Michigan. And the
Yeah.
title of the talk is our spirituality making us mean?
Mm.
And
Oh, I gotta hear that.
one of the phrases in there that we often say to others that is not an empathetic response. Of course, I'm immersed in compassion and self-compassion work. And one of the responses we give to others is, it is what it is. It is what it is. But it's like nobody with a broken shoulder, most people with a broken shoulder does not want to hear that because
Oh my gosh, no.
compassion and empathy versus that must have been very painful.
Oh,
That was a real bummer that you had to break your shoulder and that you got to live with a broke shoulder now. What could I do that would support you, or what could I do that would ease this for you
Yeah.
instead of laying some kind of spiritual platitude on it?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because what it's taught me, which is the best, is to, number one, ask for help. Number two, be willing to receive help is the bigger one. And to not go into a place of humiliation or embarrassment because, I'm supposed to be this spiritual leader and I shouldn't have anything happen. But I just figure everything that happens to me is taking me somewhere. And so in the moment, it might be painful, but I'm willing to go deep and go, now what? Where am I going? What is this? Where's this taking me? Rather than griping and complaining. But I do miss driving, I gotta say.
Well, I bet, honey. And it's like, even to hear that, like, because I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm immune from broken bones.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, there's nobody in the physical immune from anything. We have immunity.
Exactly.
We build immunity. We work at immunity. We take precautions. We can watch where we're stepping. We can wear a certain shoe. And we don't know if we're going to have a broken bone or not.
Exactly.
And then the way some of this comes across from us, unempathetic, even spiritual shaming messages like, God doesn't give you anything you can't handle.
Yeah.
Your soul chose this.
No, it didn't.
There's a lesson to be learned in this.
Yeah. I don't like any of those.
No, like any of them. It's like it's what being mean to ourselves, honey.
Yeah.
And like this is the kind of messages we've given ourselves. So then we're spouting them out and spitting them out, even in our ministries and even in our teachings and things like that. It's
Absolutely.
just look for the silver lining instead of like, it is time to meet humanity with our human heartedness, like a real connection to human heartedness. Hello. You want to come in my joy show? I've got to join somebody here. Barbara Jean, you want to see her?
Yes, I do.
Joy, what do you think of that?
Oh my goodness. Hello. What is your name?
Madeline.
Sorry?
Madeline.
Adeline?
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you.
You want to tell Barbara Jean what the motto of your school is? It's my favorite motto in the whole world of schools. I'll see if I can get it straight. Red Cross.
No, they changed it.
They changed it?
Uh-huh.
What was the old one?
It's Red Cross Mustangs love learning.
Love learning.
Excel in all we do.
Excel in all we do.
Achieve goes together and do what's right.
Achieve goals together and do what's right.
Ooh, that's lovely.
What do you think of that as a Red
Right.
Cross? So shout out to Red Cross Mustangs, y'all.
And then our new ones, Red Cross Mustangs, are creative thinkers, take initiative, hold each other accountable, are effective communicators, and believe in teamwork.
What?
Wow.
Say it again.
Red Cross Mustangs are creative thinkers, take initiative, hold each other accountable, are effective communicators, and believe in teamwork.
What do you think of that,
Wow.
Barbara?
That is awesome.
I mean,
love that.
they are on it, honey. So they are here creating a world that works for all, and 8-year-old and up.
Wow, I love that.
Thanks for letting her come in here for a minute, honey. Yeah.
She brought a little bit of joy and a lot of great information.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Both of them. Both of those quotes were fantastic.
I hope we captured it somehow, honey. So we put it out there in print. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I think sometimes we forget, the impact that we're having on youth when we sit back, and because they don't necessarily follow what we tell them, but they will follow what they see us doing. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so if we can model compassion and kindness, self-care, and real acceptance of one another, I think that's the big thing. And I was talking to some people. There's a lot of refugees who've come into Toronto recently, and I was speaking with somebody, and we were talking about how different parents are and stuff. And in Africa, they wouldn't say "I love you" to their children, and hugging and stuff was not a common thing. And so I said to one of my friends here, I said, "Oh, and then you hang out with me, and I'm like hugging and telling you I love you and all this." And she's like, "Yeah," she said, "that never happens." So we find it very unusual at first. And then she said, "But boy, does it feel good."
That's it, honey. Like it's a missing piece.
It
And
is.
whatever we got in the culture, whatever we got and whatever else, humanity is ready and waiting for some of us to say that we have got enough from the overflow of our own heart, from the overflow of our own innate inherent powers that include love and compassion and self-compassion, that we have something to give and that we can give it authentically. And
Yeah.
we can give it with less conditions than what we've had before, or with less conditions than what was handed down to us.
Yeah, the conditional giving is not the best. I've noticed even for myself, like somebody will say, "Oh, can you loan me $100 or whatever?" And it's like the answer is yes, but it's not a loan. I never consider it a loan. I always sit back and go, "Here it is." you know, do with it what you will. But if it comes back, fine. If it doesn't, fine. I really, whenever I give anything, I just give it. And then if it comes back, great. If not, I'm not worried about it. Because I found for years that I would get resentful. I loaned somebody a book and then they didn't return it. And then it's in my mind, like, why didn't that person return it? It's like we get really caught up sometimes in those type of games where we're looking for maybe reciprocity. I gave you something, now you have to give me something. I think giving without conditions is far more powerful.
Well,
That's what I love about the teaching.
it's been a big lesson for me. And I loaned and loaned and loaned and loaned and loaned. And I knew good and well that was an abandonment of myself. I knew it wasn't a loan when I put it out. I knew the probability was very, very low. I even had them to sign promissory notes. At some point, it got so bad.
Yeah.
And that was a clue that if I was having to do that I didn't believe it was. And somewhere along the way, I erased it all.
Yeah.
And I was challenged on this. There's folks studying. There's this last Martha Creek book is out now in book study. So you probably have seen it, honey. We featured it here.
Yes, I have. Presence and Potential. I thought I had it, but I was looking for it before the show. And I've got your other one.
I told this group that I forgave everything that anybody owed me because I had to free myself of that energy. I had to free myself of that energy drag and of listening to that and the excuses and blaming and the plight of it. So it was easier on me just to clear it all and start again and to learn from it whatever I could. And that one of the women in the group that's in the book study challenged me, like she doesn't agree at all with what I did. And I said, well, of course you wouldn't agree with it. It seems like it's insane. It's a legal document they had signed that they're going to pay me back. And I did not want to take the energy it was going to take out of me to go pursue that, because that's not a good use of my vital energy. That's not a good use of my creative energy. So I had to make a decision. And one of my friends would say, yeah, and it was a cheap lesson. Regardless of how much it cost, it was still a cheap lesson for me. That's all it took for me to wake up to all my giving is giving. And if it was a loan, then they would pay it back. And it's not a loan till the day it's paid back. And if it's not paid back, then that's what it was intended for to begin with. It was given.
You know, there's such a freedom in that, not only for us, but for the people that we've loaned to. Like, there's no condition, there's no awkward feeling when you see them next. There's none of that, you know, avoidance of the person because, you know, they haven't done what they're supposed to, or vice versa. They're feeling guilty because they haven't. I just, you know, I'll even tell people right up front, you know, if it doesn't come back, well, it doesn't come back. I don't really care. Even with my courses and stuff, I'll tell people, well, you know, you want to take the class, make installment payments or not. Like, but take the class, because you will get something of value from it. And whenever I did prosperity classes, I would offer a money back refund for the tithe for anybody who came back after the program and said it didn't do anything for me. Fine, I'll give you your tithe back. How much did you tithe? Go to the accountant, figure it out, send them a check. I think there's something about that is very empowering, and it gives a real sense of freedom. I don't have to be a collection agency. I could just
Absolutely not, or hover over somebody.
Yeah.
What was your direct experience of that? Did people actually ask for the money back?
You know what? I'm the one who's always, I've only had one person ask for money back. That was a single dad who was unemployed and didn't find a job by the time the program ended. And so he had tithed a little bit because he hadn't worked much. So I think the amount was, you know, under $300. It wasn't a lot. But he came back and said, you know, I need that money back. And I said, fine, and gave him the money. And then probably about a month later, he landed a really good job and things got going well for him. So yeah, I didn't hesitate at all. Like, absolutely, you need this money to feed your children. I'm not going to keep it. It's the same thing when I do funerals. It's always by donation. Weddings, I have a fee, but for a funeral, some people can barely put their loved one in the ground, let alone pay extra money for anything. So I don't want to be one of the ones gouging in there. So I think, you know, just being willing to let go and not hang on to things so tightly.
Yeah, we might, if we do another show together, or when we do another show together, that could be an interesting conversation with our fear of being gougers, our fear of being stingy, tight, frugal, withholding, uncaring, non-generous, what that causes for us and what that sets up in us, and how that also attracts to us people that are willing to be handed out to.
Yes.
People that are willing to say, oh, great, I don't have to pay anything. Great. Then it's like, oh, sign me up. Oh, keep signing me up. Oh, how else can I get somebody to pay for this? So the perfect storm of that, those of us that are chronically helpful, matching up with those that are chronically helpless.
Well, and there's that fine line, right? Yeah. Who am I giving to? And because I'm happy to say no. And there's some people I will say no to.
Well, you're light years ahead of money, because most of us are very, very scary to say no to anybody about anything, particularly people we care about.
Well, that's it. And, I've been trying to teach people for a long time. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to add anything after it. Just, no, don't want to do that today, but, leave it at that. Well, we're down to our last 4 minutes. What one little pearl would you like to leave our wonderful guests with before we sign off?
Be as compassionate with yourself as you can. Sooner or later, regardless of whatever path you're on, whatever spiritual schedule you're on, some event, some death, relationship, something will enter your life that you simply cannot deal with your existing skill set. To accept that and to know we are evolutionary beings, to stay in some kind of acquisition mode of skill and set, and that we naturally are going to be led sometime in our life to the edge of our own private resources.
Yeah.
So there are extra resources, innate resources, divine resources, humanity resources, friend resources, and there's resources way beyond our own limited private resources. And to stay open to that and to ask for help, receive help, and to keep yourself enrolled in wherever you're spiritually grounded and growing. Stay as close to the teaching as you can and know that it's a life's journey, a life's direction, not a tick box exercise.
Exactly. Like I say, life is a journey without a destination. So enjoy each moment as it comes. Martha, this has been absolutely wonderful. And Cheryl just said, grateful to have you both in my life. Thank you, Cheryl. Grateful to have you back on the continent. Well, Martha, have a most wonderful, wonderful week. This has been fantastic, and we will do it again for sure. And I want to thank our producer, Robert, for taking time out of his day to look after things and keep us rolling. You're watching The Joy Show, Just One You, here on the New Thought Media Network. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe, because we really want to get more views. And the New Thought Media Network is a charitable organization. So, hey, let's keep us on the air. Make a donation today. We'll truly, truly appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Martha. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.